Caramels provide a perfect little treat sometimes when you want an indulgent sweet. Typically made with sugar, today we're going to show you a recipe made with honey. So for honey caramels, let's go over the hardware that you're going to need. You need a tall pot. When you're boiling the honey and heavy cream together, it's going to bubble up really high, and you want to make sure that you have a pot that's going to allow it to come up and not boil over onto your stove. I have an 8x8 pan, which I'm going to pour it in. I have it lined with parchment paper. I've cut 2 strips, the width of the pan, and I have them overlapping so I can make a sling out of them. I have a thermometer, and I'm going to get to 245 degrees when I cook the candy. That's the softball stage. If you go over what we need for the ingredients, there's 1 cup of honey, 3/4 of a cup of heavy cream. In this case, I have heavy whipping cream, which is the exact same thing. Pure vanilla extract. Because you suck on these things and savor the taste, make sure you use pure vanilla and not knockoff. And you're going to need 2 tablespoons of butter. It's 1.5 teaspoons of the vanilla extract and 2 tablespoons of butter. And then you'll need a little bit to line this. You could spray this with some sort of cooking spray, but I prefer to brush it with butter because the caramel is going to be, the first taste on your tongue is going to be whatever was in here. And then last but not least, and this is optional, I have some salt here, and I've ground a little bit. And if you wanted to make salted caramels, which I'm going to do today, you would just sprinkle the salt on top of the caramel. So let's get to making it. Okay, so I'm going to start. I have my measuring cup set up for 1 cup of honey. Pour that in. I'm going to pull it down so that I get 3/4 of a cup of cream to add to it. This contraption is called a plunge measuring cup. You'll see how it works in a second. So I have my 3/4 of a cup of cream. I'm going to take it over here and go ahead and pour it in my pot. And now I'm going to bring this up to the boil. I'm going to stir my mixture frequently here. I want to make sure where the heat is, it's not going to sit in one place and burn. So I'm just going to keep an eye on this. Once you start making this, you should really just stay with it the whole time. I have it mixed up pretty well. I've melted a little bit of butter. And like I said, I'm just going to brush my parchment paper here. I didn't do it, but I could have taken a little bit of honey and put it underneath this bottom one to make the top one stick to it. Wouldn't have been so difficult to do. I think that's going to do. So I'll bring you up and over here, and you're going to see a lot of bubbles, big, larger bubbles. A little light on the subject. This is the water cooking out of the honey and out of the heavy cream. This is what you're expecting to see. So when you watch the temperature and you see these larger bubbles, you know at some point it's going to cook this moisture off. And the bubbles will get more petite and smaller. And when they do, that's when you know you're getting closer to the temperature you're looking for. This is that bubble stage that I talked about. Now this is a relatively small amount of liquid, so you probably could have used a shorter pan, and in this case my thermometer doesn't reach down into the liquid, so I'm going to have to tilt it up to check it. But you don't want to get this spattering on you. Now this is starting to take on the smell of caramel. In the beginning it smelled like a sweet cream, and I'm starting to get those caramel notes to it. One of the things you're going to do here is take it above 235 and under 245. That's a softball stage for candy. I'm going to use a thermometer, but you could take a spoonful out and put it into some iced water with crushed ice in it, and then reach in with your fingers and gather it together and see if you can bring it into a little bit of a ball. And then you'll pull it out of that water, and with your fingers, if you could squish it down into a flat disc, you're in the softball stage. If you cooked it a little bit harder, you would make a little harder stage, and you'd pull it out and you'd not be able to squeeze it as easily. It would maintain its shape a little more. So I think I'm partway there. I don't believe I'm there all the way. Let me just tilt it up and check my temp. Got a little condensation on here. I'm about 225 right now. So I'll just keep going until I get it a little bit higher. Okay, the concoction stopped bubbling. I've put 2 tablespoons of butter in there. I'm using salted butter in here. A lot of times when you cook with recipes you use unsalted butter, but in this case salt versus the sweet of the caramel, I think that's a good mix. I'm going to put 1.5 teaspoons of pure vanilla extract in. There's a whole teaspoon. And coming back for the half salt. Stir this in, get it all mixed in, and then as soon as everything is mixed, I'm going to pour it in my buttered pan. I'm really just looking for that butter to be melted. This smells so good. You can see the color it's taken on. It's exactly what I would think it's supposed to look like. So the vanilla is all mixed in, and the butter is melted. I think it's good to go. I'm going to go ahead and pour it right in my pan. Oops. Using my spatula to get every drop. I don't want to waste any. So this is going to go in here, and then we're going to put it in the refrigerator. Well, first I'm going to let it sit out at room temperature for an hour. And then once it gets to be room temperature, I'm going to put it in the refrigerator and let it cool off for another hour. And then after it's done for that time period, I am going to go ahead and pull it out while it's cold and cut it into little bitty cubes. So the one thing I would suggest right now is do not taste this, because remember, it was just at very, very high temperature. And don't make that mistake, because there's nothing that will burn you better than hot sugars. I'm just going to smooth it all out, make sure it's level. And it looks really good. Okay, let's let it sit. Okay, I'm letting this cool down, and I have to say that I've scraped a little bit off of it and let it cool off, and I'm going to taste it. This would be just perfect to put over ice cream right now. Have you ever had that impression? Very good. Tastes very caramel-like, very mellow, soft flavor. Perfect. Can't wait for this to cool off. I'm going to take it off this hot stove and let it go. So actually, I almost forgot. I wanted to make salted caramel. So while this is still relatively warm, I'm just going to take some crushed salt that I put in my mortar and pestle and just sprinkle it very lightly over top. Don't want to get too crazy with this. I just want enough of the salt to come through that when you put a piece on your tongue, you're going to taste it. So that's about it. So the caramel has been sitting in the refrigerator for a little while. I'm ready to take it out. I'm going to cut it up. I've got a good sharp knife here. And let's see how my sling has worked. Oh, pretty good. I'm able to pull this off. And I think I'm going to slice it right on the wax paper and see what I get. So you really want a good sharp knife, something heavy to work with here. Check this first row out, pretty good. I'm going to trim the edges. They have a rounded corner from the pan. And then I'll go after the middle, which is going to be a little better. Just checking to see how it looks. And it looks good. So I'm going to go after this edge first. Square it off. I get this other last corner. And now what I'll do is just take the knife and divvy all these up. I'll get them cut out. I'll put them in a tin and I'm going to keep them in the refrigerator. With this, you want to keep it in the refrigerator until it's done. I believe it'll keep it from melting and sticking together. And you know what? How could I not try one? So let me take a little piece here and see what it tastes like. Very good, very caramel, very smooth. Just a hint of salt that I put on it. These are really outstanding. So try it out. And we'll post in the actual amounts and information about the recipe at the tail end of this video. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoy the caramel. Okay, shh. Take one. Caramels make that perfect little sweet treat sometimes. Typically they're made with sugar, but today we're going to show you a recipe.